you doing, my giant-sized fan things? Hope you're keeping safe out there. Today, I'm having a look at a Marvel Legends figure that I've been waiting for quite a while, and I might have got a bit impatient with. It's the Marvel Legends Retro carded Spider-Man 2099. And oh lord, this is a figure I have wanted. This thing is beautiful, it's brilliant. It's maybe a little outdated, but I still love the damn thing. I managed to pick this thing up from the fine folks over at Comics and Cocktails, or at least I will be. Yeah, I've had one pre-order there for quite a while, but Toys of Armour happened to have some in actual stock last week, and so I bought one from them as well. So not only have I got this one, I have another one on order, but spoiler alert, I like this thing so much, I'm quite happy to have two. Yeah, so okay. As usual, a little bit of background on the character. In 1992/1991, very early 90s, the late great Stan Lee had an idea for a character called Ravage, and he really wanted to push this idea, and he wanted it set in a futuristic version of the Marvel Universe. So he came up with the idea of the 2099 universe, somewhere he could put his eco-warrior of the future, Ravage, in. Now Marvel wanted to expand upon this, so they went to their writers and said, okay guys, we're creating this universe set in 2099, do whatever you want. And of course, this being writers at Marvel back then, they had no idea what they really wanted to do, so they decided to take a lot of the characters they already had and create futuristic versions of them. And in the process, they created the world of 2099. A world where most of America is ran by large corporations that have really taken over from the government. The cities are sort of split into the high-tech area above and the crappy, low-income, scummy areas at the very base of everything. And it's not a great place, to be honest. As I say, it's ran by big corporations. There's continual fights between Thorites, people who worship Thor as a god, which, okay, technically he is, but they worship him as he will one day return, because all the heroes at this point have vanished. There's no heroes from the Golden Age left. There's been no one for nearly 100 years, and these Thorites are usually in opposition with the privately owned defence and police forces of the time. Most of these actually fall under the title of the Private Eye, which are owned by Alchemax, one of the biggest corporations at the time. And yeah, in that world we end up with quite a few interesting titles, like stuff like Punisher 2099, Doom 2099, Hulk, Ghost Rider, X-Men, quite a few. But there was one that sort of stood apart from the rest. See, artist Peter David and writer Rick Leonardi had a few ideas for their Spider-Man of that period. Something very interesting. As you can see from these early sort of design sketches, they're taking influences from maybe the black costume, maybe from Punisher, and they create something rather special. Okay, going into the canon backstory of Spider-Man 2099, he is Miguel O'Hara, a very high-ranking geneticist at Alchemax, and at one point he was put in charge of a project to create the perfect corporate espionage agent. And looking at old photos and what little information they had about a man named Spider-Man, he thought, well, someone with the powers of a spider, pretty much that fits the bill. Unfortunately, their first human experiment didn't turn out very well, and what came out of the experiment didn't live very long. Deciding that he couldn't really live with doing this and didn't want to be part of this sort of level of human experimentation, because don't get me wrong, he wasn't like the most upright and perfectly moral person, even he had standards. He went to quit, and his boss said, fair enough, let's have a drink, let's discuss it. Problem is, his boss and little arsehole named Tyler Stone laced his drink with a chemical that altered his genetic structure to make him chemically dependent upon something called Rapture, a drug that only Alchemax could produce, thereby ensuring he had to stay loyal to the company. Yeah, dick move. But Miguel is a genetic genius, and luckily, while he was doing his experiments, he needed a baseline human genetic code to study, and he used his own. So his plan was simply get into the machine, even though he knew it didn't quite work before, but that was transposing a alien or a spider's DNA onto a human. This is just like restoring a backup copy of his own DNA. It should have worked, and it would have worked. Well, it would have, it would have succeeded, if not for his assistant, who was, well, angry and resentful of Miguel for, well, being younger than him and more successful. So halfway through, he decided to add in the spider DNA, and the machine overlaid Miguel's DNA with a combination of both his own and the spider's. And what appeared from out the pod was, well, this Spider-Man 2099. And this wasn't the same sort of Spider-Man we knew, or we know today from the modern times. This Spider-Man is very different. He doesn't have spider sense. He has accelerated vision, allowing him to see the world around him in almost bullet time and at greater distances. He doesn't stick using like static cling powers. He has razor sharp talons coming from the end of his fingers and his toes to literally dig into the surfaces that he wants to climb and to slash his opponents. He has sharp venom-filled fangs hidden in his mouth to bite and poison if he needs to. He also doesn't use web shooters. He has actual natural web shooters. If you ever see like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, it's the same deal. And this actually came out a little bit before that, actually quite a bit before them. So it might have been the inspiration. Even his costume is very different. It was actually originally is it Dia de Muerte? Day of the Dead costume made from unstable molecule fibres, the same thing the Fantastic Four make their costumes out of. And basically, it was the only thing that could survive the wild partying down there in New Mexico. How many news were there by 2099? A lot. It was a real keg of a weekend, and he needed something that would survive, and this thing did. It's practically indestructible, which is lucky for him. And yeah, they created this Spider-Man, and over the course of the series, he became like the main guy from the 2099 universe. He supplanted Ravage as the focal point of it, as the fans' favourite, and during the series, he went from being a very cynical, self-centered git to, after seeing like what the companies were doing, after experiencing the lives of the downtrodden and downtown, the area below, or the high-rise cities at the very bottom, where it is just literally like eking out your existence in slums and squalor, he decided to fight back against the corporations and become a focal point for resistance against them. And it was really, really good. His series ran for about 45 issues, plus loads of other little things to sort of like see to the end of the original 2099 run. But what's really cool, 2014, they did a new series. Its series started sort of almost at the end of the original Spider-Man 2099 series, but rather than events carrying on as they should have, Spider-Man 2099 found himself sent back to modern period, but to the 2014 Marvel Universe. And he was trapped there for a while. And he had to stay there. Not only that, but he also had to make sure that he didn't knack up the time stream, and that nothing else did actually. So he could eventually return to his own world of 2099. And while he was there, he had a few decent adventures. He met and fell in love with a rather interesting woman named Tempest, and she got pregnant, but unfortunately he got whipped away back to the future, and yeah, he was supposed to stay there. He couldn't go back, and it was kind of a bittersweet, because I followed this series all the way through. There was 2 volumes of it and I loved it, and it was a bit of a bittersweet ending that he found himself back in the future, but he couldn't see the woman he loved or the child that they had. But luckily in 2019, sort of like in the midpoint of, okay, like in 2019 it was 80 years since Marvel began, and another 80 years it would have been the world of 2099. So they decided to reboot 2099 again. Miguel found himself back in present day, trying to stop the future of 2099 from being destroyed. Spoiler alert, it kind of failed. It was kind of like a massive reboot of the 2099 universe, and Miguel O'Hara, who came back in time, ended up staying here, living his life with the woman he loved and their child, which was brilliant. And then he lived long enough to meet the new Miguel O'Hara from 2099 and set into motion the events that would restart the 2099 universe and bring it not exactly as it was before, but a new version of it. And there's nothing else since 2019 about the Marvel 2099 universe, but what they did then was brilliant, and I really hope they go back to doing it. Well, just say go back to visiting it again. But even outside of comic books, Miguel has appeared in a lot of other things. He's been a mainstay of Spider-Man video games as either alternative skins or as playable characters in Shattered Dimensions. He was one of the 4 Spider-Man you played there. And he had a co-starring role in Spider-Man Edge of Time, where you alternated between playing Peter Parker and Miguel O'Hara. Really cool. He was a great alternative skin in the PS4/PS5 Spider-Man game. That was really cool. He's appeared in cartoons as well, in the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon, both in a CGI version and a properly animated version. And it was even really cool at the end of Into the Spider-Verse. He was the Stinger bit at the end, travelling the multiverse to meet other Spider-Men and ending up back in meme territory. But you know, through all this history, Spider-Man 2099 has always been cool, and he's still one of my favourite Marvel characters, and probably one of the most underground iconic, because it's been nearly 30. It's been 30 years nearly since his first appearance, and it hasn't really changed apart from a brief period. They gave him a slightly different costume, but they brought it back to the classic. And I kind of think in another 30 years he's still going to be here, still the brilliant, futuristic, just amazing version of Spider-Man. Probably my favourite version of Spider-Man actually, and I really hope we get to see more of him again in the comic books. But anyway, that's enough of going on about the backstory in the comic books and all that lot. Let's get back to this figure. Ostensibly, this is a re-release of the Spider-Man Marvel Legends figure that came out in the Hobgoblin wave 2 years ago. It's 99% the same figure, it's just been cast in, rather than the glossy metallic plastic that figure was cast in, it's a slightly more muted dark blue. I think it works actually a little bit better. The skull spider logo has been shrunk down a little bit, so it's a bit more easy to see on his chest. But apart from that, it's the same. It's got a lovely little web cape attached to his back with a semi-translucent plastic with really nice sculpted detailing. The figure really is like the Pizza Spidey body, with a few little add-ons like the arm spikes and the lovely sculpted details of the mask. One thing this figure actually does better than the other one is hand options. Like, this figure has some really great clawed hands, which I don't know what they're from, because they might be original to this mould, but I'm not entirely sure. If they are, brilliant, but I can't think of what else they have been used for. But they'll probably get used again at something else. And being on that Pizza Spidey body, it obviously has a fair bit of articulation. Not bad by any sense of the word, but I kind of wish they kind of used the new retro Spider-Man body. That's got a little bit of better diaphragm articulation, a bit bulkier. But I can live with this. This is really nice. It balances well. The paint doesn't get broken up really. There's a few bits where the pins really could have done with the bit where the blue pin is on the red paint or on the red stripe. If that was painted red to blend in, that would have been better. But I can do that myself if I need to. And overall, I'm really happy with him. As I said, he's got different hand options, which is definitely a bonus over the previous release of this figure. As well as the aforementioned claws. There's a pair of fists. Really great fists, to be fair. They're good. They're fists at the end of the day. He's not really much of a punching character, but it's one of those things they can add in. I'm not going to knock it. Hand options are always good. Another one he comes with, definitely a Spider-Man staple. If you're not going to have web clipping hands, which he doesn't need because he never does that web clipping thing, it just kind of shoots out and he grabs it. He has the wall climbing hands, the ones with the splayed fingers. They look really cool. I've always liked these, they're actually quite expressive. And if you use them just right, you can actually get him to hold onto the side of a wall with them, which I think is really cool. He is stood there on that wall, clinging to it for dear life. That's really, really impressive. I've never known a figure. Well, I've never not been impressed when a figure can do this. And yeah, that's kind of it for what the figure itself is like. Let me just compare it now to some other ones in my collection. Obviously, first I've got to compare him to that retro Spider-Man. As you can see, the new one, or the new retro Spider-Man, should I say, slightly bulkier, the articulation's a bit more integrated, that lovely diaphragm joint is really cool. I do wish we'd got this body, or this figure done on that body. It would make him slightly bulkier, but at the end of the day I can't complain. If If he had been on there, that'd been good, but I'm not going to knock him for being on this one. Here he is with the Maestro, a larger figure. This is the deluxe Maestro release. Looks really cool together. Having a few, like, in the 2014 series was a little bit of a time where the two fought each other. Actually, in some of the classic comic books, they had a few tussles across time and space. So the two, luckily, look really good together. Here he is with my custom Venom 2099. Yeah, they did a Venom back then for 2099 as well. And it's just the movie Venom with the bit of extra black paint on the body and a repainted recast of the Eddie Brock, the previous Venom's head, like the was it the Rhino Wave or the Absorbing Man Wave Venom's head, just recast and repainted. But they look good together. And something I thought I'd do now, which I don't normally do, is compare him to some figures from other lines. So here he is next to another 90s staple that has still survived. Spawn from McFarlane Toys. The Spawn figures are supposed to be like a 7-inch scale, I think. So he does look bigger, but not too much bigger. Well, not too out of scale with each other. Here he is, speaking of scale, oh lord. Here he is with the Master of the Universe Origins He-Man. I just do the next. I really like this Origins line, and I'm really tempted to do some reviews of them. I've got about 20 figures already. Oh. But yeah, it's childhood for me. These two together looking really cool. And yeah, that's it. I say this is a figure I've been looking forward to for a long time. Spider-Man 29 has always been one of my favourite characters, and outside of getting the classic Toy Biz one from the old Spider-Man line, which looked really cool by the way. I saw it once in the shop and I couldn't get it. This figure is just as just as precious to me. I think it's just a wonderful figure, and I'm glad I picked it up. As I said, I'm so glad I picked it up. I'm getting it twice, and the other one I'm probably going to keep in the box and have it on display, because the packaging these things come in is actually really amazing. It's the classic Spider-Man cartoon toy line from Toy Biz packaging, but it just looks really cool, especially with the retro art and retro just feel and aesthetic. I love it. Well, folks, I hope you liked this review. If you did, please leave a like and a comment down below, and if you've not already, please subscribe to my channel. And yeah, that's it. So until next time, folks, I want you all to stay safe, stay sane, and keep on rolling. And I'll see you all next time. Ta-da!